All right. Hey, Juliana.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Living the dream. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. I'm really glad that we got the whole technical setup here working and that we're making this happen. This little side note, this is the very first Visionary Art podcast that's ever been recorded.
Super honored to be on here.
I'm really glad that you took the time to do this. For the people at home watching, Juliana's actually sitting across from me right now. We're on a Zoom call, and that's how this podcast is taped together. So I want to ask you a bunch of questions about your art and your business, because I feel like every time that we have conversations, I learn something from you for sure. But before we get to those ones, I want to just ask, when does the artist journey get easier?
I think there's always struggles, but that's part of what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Versus maybe perhaps consistent paycheck jobs can get kind of boring. We get it's kind of difficult, but it's always exciting. Yeah. That's how I try to look at it.
Yeah. It feels like it's either drought or deluge.
Yeah.
In that sense, and it's always kind of wacky and crazy.
Yeah, my tactic has been on the highs, save as much money and as much positivity within, and on the lows, use that up. So because some artists, when they're on the highs, they'll just really think I'm always gonna be here, and then they'll spend all their money, and then the lows always come. For most artists, there's highs and lows because it's not consistent paychecks. So it's I think really balancing and finding equanimity between the two that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because whenever I get a large payment, and after finishing a project or something, I'm like, I have made it, I can finally adopt a cat. And then 2 months later, I'm like, what happened?
Always adopt a cat though. Great decision.
Oh yeah,
quite the wonderful luxury.
Oh, he is the greatest investment I've ever made. This is Bo, by the way, my cat. He lives here, not on this box, but here at my house.
He is the true star of the show.
He really is. This whole thing was his idea. Yeah. He's a little genius. Yeah. So you're saying that saving up money during the high times can kind of really help to prepare for when things are less consistent and such.
To expect the fluctuation,
Yeah.
Because that is normal. Even when you start making it big, there's times where it doesn't even depend on how big you are, but for example, what happened this year with COVID, where everybody suddenly was not spending on anything but essentials, so it's things like that are beyond you. That's important to always just save up for those moments. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when COVID first hit, did you notice a drop in sales or anything? For sure. When it first hit, there was a bunch of people messaging me saying I really want an original, I really want to print, but right now I lost my job, or right now I'm kind of nervous about what's gonna happen. So in that moment, for the first few months, the sales did drop a lot, but after a while, I think once people started to get more comfortable and realize that this wasn't an apocalypse, then things went back to normal.
Yeah. I think even a month or two in, once people were oh, we're stuck inside and this is kind of a new normal, because I noticed the sales actually picked up pretty dramatically, maybe a month or two afterwards. It's amazing how this circumstance is really just shaking everything up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's shaking us right into a new world. It's stay home, think about what you've done. It was nature punishing us, grounding us, and sending us to our rooms, you stay inside and don't go near anyone. Oh man. So you are teaching artwork. You're teaching art, yeah?
Yeah, I teach visionary art classes online, and I really love teaching online because it helps me reach such a broad range of people. I currently have students in Australia and the UK, New York, just all over the place, and it's really exciting to be able to talk to someone that's across the world. And for them it's like the next day.
Yeah.
It's like whole new day, and like, you know, we're there and like, oh yeah, so like Tuesday for me, Wednesday for you. It's like really cool, and just to like be able to like connect with people from so many different places about visionary art. And I find visionary art to really like be different than any other kind of art form, because we're not only talking about like art technique and art business and things like that, but we're talking about spirit and like message and like, you know, what kind of like meaning we're trying to put out there in a very spiritual way. So I love like teaching my students not only like visionary art techniques and the business side, but also like how do you like ground yourself, how do you meditate, how do you get visions, like all these like really wonderful things that I deeply resonate with. So I would say teaching is one of my biggest passions. And even though right now I could just do like just art, like my own art, I can't not teach, because I just like find such a joy in finding people, like helping people find their creative outlet, and to see them like create something that they didn't think was possible and be like really happy and excited. It just brings me so much joy that I'm kind of addicted to it.
That's awesome. You're like really like sharing the love of the art like with the people that are in your classes.
Yeah.
Like, as opposed to just being like an artist and be like, no, these are my skills, I'll take all these.
Like if anything, like I would love like once I'm like no longer in this world to like know there's people out there still like using what I learned and like figured out myself, and now they're applying it, maybe even teaching it to other people. And just like to see like when my students send me like new artworks they've done, the things they've learned, I just like get so excited that I helped create. Now like not only am I like helping like raise a collective consciousness through my own art, but to teach others and they themselves go and help raise the collective consciousness, it's like a multiplied effect, and it's just so exciting.
Yeah, it's absolutely like super exciting, and I bet it's like a really incredible feeling to like see your students like actually like implementing the skills that you're teaching them, and like you're kind of influencing them through this like conduit of energy in that way.
Yeah, and especially like I really enjoy seeing like what their art was before they started the classes, and like after even our first project, like it's such a drastic difference, and I'm like, whoa, like look at the before and after, and they're like, wow, it looks like a whole different artist.
I bet that's incredible.
Really cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
What's like a challenge that a lot of like students face that you generally find? Like, are there any like common like things that are like hard for people to like understand, or like?
Honestly, like the main challenge I see people, artists in general that I've taught, like, you know, I've been teaching for quite a few years now, is just like their own love for their art. Like there's honestly a lot of people that just like don't like their art, and I'm like, look, like you're making progress, and this is like a technique that you like have to put in time, and you keep getting better. But there's just some people that are so down hard on themselves when, you know, it's something that you're constantly progressing in. And I feel like especially our own art, when we look at it, we will always see the flaws more than anybody, but I think we don't realize that for other people can look quite amazing. Yeah, which is actually what back in the day I used to teach not only adults, but I used to also teach kids classes. And that was the biggest difference I noticed, was that the adults would be like, oh, my painting looks no good, I should have done better, this is crooked, and like they'd be so hard on themselves. And the kids, they literally would just like smack their hand with paint on the canvas, be like, this is the best painting ever, it's so good. And it's like, yeah, it is, like, because it's like unique, it's like the only one, and it's really about that confidence and just having confidence in your work. And even if you go to like Art Basel, like some of the nicest galleries in the world right now, certain art is just like literally like the one where there's a banana duct taped to a wall, or like there's just like rags nailed to a wall, or it's like a scribble, you know, and things like that. But the difference between them and ordinary people is that they have the confidence to call it art, to put a high price tag, to really believe in themselves. So really, so much of how people perceive your art is like how much confidence you believe in yourself, and you know how much confidence you show when you showcase it.
That's so interesting and like such a good insight. Like one of the ideals or like concepts that I've kind of followed, like, you know, throughout my art journey and my art path, is the idea of like faking it till you make it.
Yep.
Like just walk into somewhere and like you act like you belong, like whether you actually feel like you do or not, like you know what kind of value you're bringing to the table.
Absolutely.
And what kind of like results like people get when they actually look at your art, and what kind of like inspiration and motivation, and what you're, if you're really clear on like that internal message and you have that like downright confidence in it, then like that can be game changing. I'm really fascinated to hear that, like, you know, that's something that it's like, so you know, students start to see too.
Yeah, no, and the fake it till you make it does work. Even I know there's like stories of Michelangelo before he was a big artist, like just going around acting like he was a big artist and saying he was a big artist, and then it worked, and then he became a big artist. And it's like truly, if you want to be a full-time artist, or you just want to be an artist, the first person that has to believe in that is yourself. And you got to convince yourself that you are an artist, and you are a professional artist and a full-time artist. You just got to, like, even if you're not, just like if you still have doubts, just like start saying that I'm a professional artist, and like putting it on your business card, artist. Like make a business card that says artist in your name, and like, you know, just start like telling people, and put it on your website, and you just start like believing it so hard that other people start to believe it too, and then you start getting commissions and you start getting sales. So really, like, there's no one that's gonna come around and be like, you're a professional artist now. There's no one that's gonna do that. The person that has to do that is you, and you gotta decide it. So it's really just like having that confidence and like telling yourself, like allowing yourself to do that. Yeah, like actually the very first commissioned artwork that I ever got was because like I just started telling everybody that I met that I was a digital media producer, and I worked in like advertising, and like I create like flyers and graphic design. Like I literally just told pretty much everybody I met that that's what I did, and eventually someone at a party was like, hey, like a friend of mine needs an illustration done, like can I reference you like to him? Can I give him your information? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then originally I was going to do it for free, but then like 2 months into it, of me just being neurotic and like changing things and like still learning really, then like I was like, you know, I actually kind of need to get paid. And when I asked that, then like he immediately like helped me out, knowing that it was like one of my first projects. So I got really lucky with the very first commission art client that I ever had. I'm actually working with him again right now on a book illustration. This was back in like 2014. Wow.
So I think like, you know, really building a business or a brand that's successful is also kind of revolves around like that consistency, because like you never know what from the past is going to like pop up in the future and like you know, bring something back. Like something I've thought for a really long time is that each work of art that we finish and we complete, we put in our portfolio and our own personal gallery. It's like a investment in the future, because that artwork is going to be seen for years and years and decades, and for just so long people are going to be seeing this artwork, and like you never know when it actually might become relevant like towards to the universe. Like my artwork, fairy festivals, when I got the first like custom sized tapestry order of it, I think within that year I sold maybe like 2. Like I really didn't sell that many, and I got like 10. It cost me like hundreds of dollars to get these. It was a big investment for me, and I was like, my artwork sucks, and you know, kind of experienced that like existential drama. But then like about a year and a half ago, I took the rest of those tapestries to a festival. There was about 5. I had about 5, but I hung them up. I had my canopy tent, and I sold out every single one that weekend. Like on the last day too, people kept coming up to my tent, and they were like, what is this? Like, can I buy it? And I was like, yeah.
And we're not only like building like these artworks for future, but also like we're building a lot of momentum of just like posting them and like constantly like demonstrating to people online that we're an artist. Can like really lead to a lot of things. So like, you know, sometimes we post artworks like a few times a week, and we feel like no one's maybe paying attention, but you know, few years later, someone's like, oh, I've seen you post for so long, like I want an artwork now. You know, we don't know who's like seeing it, and like later on, like once they've seen that we've been doing that for a few years, then they're like convinced, okay, this person's like a consistent artist, and then they buy an artwork like way down the road.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, you actually never really know who's watching, like, through social media. Like, I've seen people in person who are like, hey, your latest artwork, I love it, it's so good, keep it up. And I was like, you follow me?
Yeah, it was crazy one time that it really like happened to me, like that was super shock. Was like recently I went to Colombia, which I don't like, South America, where I don't really promote my work, and someone at like, I was at this nightclub, and someone came up to me and like with their phone out, like, oh, you're Juliana Garces, can I take a picture with you? I'm like, wow, like I'm in a whole different country, and they like brought another friend, they were like taking pictures like next to me, like all excited and saying they loved my work, and I was like, whoa, like that's so wild, you know? Like, I've had it like happen around here, like in Asheville and stuff a lot, but it's like because I like tag all my stuff with Asheville, or like, you know, things like that. But to like see someone like in a whole different place like be super excited to like see me, it was like really cool.
Yeah, I bet was that like a surreal feeling when it like first started happening? Yeah,
no, the thing is like, yeah, especially like it started happening mostly like, you know, festivals and things, or like Asheville, because I thought, oh well, I'm promoting Asheville, and then like this is like my crowd, like in festivals. So like, but once it started happening more like just out and about, like and different countries and stuff, then I'm like, whoa, like you don't know how many people you're actually touching, you know, online. Like, I feel like sometimes we feel like these are just like numbers, but we forget that they're like, each one of them is like an individual human being, you know, out there. It's like,
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, it's so weird. Social media is like a watered, like a holographic version of our reality, where we can make these like little copies of ourselves, who's like delivering this like repeating message that repeats to like hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people, and like it resonates with some of them will like interact with this like holographic copy of yourself, and then some others will be like, let's see the next hologram, and like, you know, that's fine because you connect with the people that you resonate with. But it's like really wild how this system, like I was a teenager when social media really started to like gain popularity, and like now it's like insane what it's done to revolutionize the industry, and just like the notoriety of people as well. It's really crazy.
It's such a magical opportunity, especially for artists, because you get to promote yourself for free. So like I'm a huge advocate of using social media, and also like not only do you get to promote yourself, but this is really the first time in like history that artists can be completely independent, because back in the day, like you'd have to go through galleries. Like that was really the only way to like, you know, really get yourself out there, like where, you know, if the gallery didn't like your work and they didn't want to put your stuff in the gallery, you kind of couldn't be an artist. But now, there doesn't have to be any galleries involved. You can just put your stuff and sell directly to people. And now artists don't necessarily need galleries. Galleries are still great, but like, you know, one other than now could you do that? It's like really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's creating all this like new type of art. 'Cause like I feel like for example, visionary art, psychedelic art, would probably be very frowned upon when it was starting out through galleries, you know, like maybe it wasn't like seen as normal. But now, like, you know, we can just like through social media just sell directly and show directly to people. So like it's just gives the opportunity for like more like like I don't know, controversial art or new art to get out there, because there's really no like buddy like kind of filtering it.
Yeah, and also like really specific niches as well, and like their own genres to kind of like bud and develop. Like if someone's art style is like drawing Pikachu surfing, then they can design their whole brand around like Pikachu surfing and use hashtag Pikachu surf, and like they can connect with other people who love Pikachu and who love surfing. Like it can get so incredibly specific as well. Like some advice that I've heard from like marketers talking about you know, just growing a brand is like staying really consistent with like one specific style, or one specific, like within one specific niche will, like, you know, it's a thin tube to fill, I guess, and like it'll fill up tall really fast. Versus like if your work is really generic or broad, then like it's going to take a lot longer to fill because it's like there's so much diversity in it. And that's something I think about a lot because I do like a lot of like different types of art, but I'm trying to kind of narrow it down to like one thing. And I think a lot of other people have that challenge as well. Like what would your advice or like suggestions be for someone who likes to do a lot of different kinds of art?
So I struggled with that for a long time, and like I would do abstract, I would do realism, I would just like be all over the place, and my stuff was good, but like I had no consistent style, and I try to force myself to do a style. I'm like, okay, like I'm hearing all these like people say that I need to have a consistent style, so I decided to just like pick a style and like go with it, but then I started feeling so uninspired, and so it was kind of a battle, an inner battle where I'm like, I'm trying so hard to stick to the style, but I like want to do other stuff. So after a while, it's just like, I'm just going to do whatever inspires me. And I gave up on the whole idea of having a style. And ironically, as soon as I gave that up, I actually found my style and started making visionary art. So it's really ironic. So in a way, like, I would just say, like, do what inspires you and really just make a lot of art. And after a while, like if you keep doing what inspires you, you'll start to see a pattern in like something being consistent. And once you see that pattern, then follow that and pick your style. But don't try to force a style, because then you can work yourself into this box that maybe isn't the right box for you. But do have like a kind of general like hope to eventually like lead to something consistent. But that's what I found. That's what worked for me. Was I couldn't like force myself into having a style. It was just like as soon as I started deciding to just do whatever inspired me, that I started seeing a style. So,
yeah, because something I experienced last summer was I did like a series of studies of portraits, like just learning how to draw people from photographs, and like what I noticed was that really expanded like my awareness of what I like to draw, because I used to never like doing portraits because they were such an intense challenge for me. But like after that, like I'm making like a full portrait in like a single day, and like I'm kind of impressing myself.
You know what I've also realized? That like a lot of people like say that they don't think they have a style, but other people do see it. I feel like sometimes it's hard for ourselves to see our style. But like I see any of your works and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a piece by Brett, like instantly. And I've noticed people be like, oh yeah, that totally looks like your style. And sometimes like it's like something we don't notice ourselves, just out there. Yeah,
it's like our own personal touch. Like we can't help but like add it into our artwork or our creations. So like what our own little like personal nuances like will always end up into it. And I think that kind of leads back to like the question of like faking your own confidence, I guess, like in artwork, because if you're doing something with a lot of like commitment to it and you're like, this is the right decision, this is the other right decision, then it can really lead to something that we're like really proud of, and we can like kind of impress ourselves in that sense, and like also create like some coherence like between all the works. But like I see that question a lot on like digital art groups of like how do I find my own style. I like your answer of like just create a ton of art and create a lot of stuff and like see what comes out of it. That's awesome.
I feel like it's like almost like it happens eventually if you start creating a lot of art like every day and you just do what inspires you. After a while, like if you look at it all together, you start to see there is a pattern, and once you kind of catch on to that pattern, to do more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you how you got started with art. Like was there like a first time where it was like an epiphanal moment, or have you just always been drawing? Like how'd you get started?
So I was born in Colombia in South America and moved to the United States at a very young age, like when I was 3. And then after a few years moved back to South America and kind of went back and forth like every like couple years. And my language for both like English and Spanish were really bad at the time. And I had an accent in both, and was like all the kids my age were already like reading, and I was like still like struggling from like all the going back and forth. I was just confused. But as a kid, I felt I was a bit shy because of my accent and stuff in both languages. So I just started drawing, and I realized that I like would draw something in either country and I'd show it to people and they'd get the same reaction. They could understand like as much in either country. Like I realized that art transcended that language barrier, and I became fascinated by that as a kid. I was like, whoa, how come like there's this thing we can do that like transcends language, and I can do this artwork and I can show it to anybody that speaks any language and they're gonna understand. I was like, whoa, that's so cool. So I kept making more art, and eventually I got older and my English got better and my Spanish got better, and language wasn't a barrier for me anymore. But I started getting into meditation and then into medicines and into having these really profound mystical experiences that words felt short. And I tried to explain like, whoa, I had this like wild experience, and I'd like put it into words, but I was like, doesn't do it justice, you know? It's just like words. So I started turning again to what I had turned to at a young age when language wasn't enough. I turned to art, and I started making visionary art to express my mystical experiences, and I felt like they were a much better representation of my experience than words. And yeah, now I still do that, and I'm fascinated by how art can, I feel like, at least maybe not, you know, it's not exactly the mystical experience, because that's just so beyond anything, but it's closer than words. At least I find that it gets closer. And yeah, I'm just completely fascinated by that, and I still just enjoy doing that. So that's how I got into art.
I love that. That's it's like your translation of like visions through the visual mediums and expressions. Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
Thanks. Glad you resonate.
That's awesome. Does your so you were talking about like mystical experiences? Is there a mystical experience you've ever had that like really profoundly affected your life?
Oh man, so many. I've had like, you know, I literally make art about mystical experiences, so I have like, you know, so many. But probably the most profound I've had was on, I did just one time, I did 5-MeO DMT, and that experience was really beyond anything. Because like so many of my experiences, well, basically all my experiences ever have been like observer and observe. And it's the world of form, even when it gets into like the NNDMT realms, where it's very intense fractally beings and like impossible geometries and so beyond anything. I'm still observing that. Versus when I did the one time I did 5-MeO DMT, it was really a dissolve of the observer and the observed. It's like there was nothing, yet there was everything, and it was like beyond all the sense doors. And I'm still trying to figure out how to express that in artwork. An artwork that expresses just pure consciousness, pure source, because that was for me the most like beautiful thing I've ever experienced. It was like just the deepest sense of peace, and like felt like nirvana. So I've just been like working on creating an artwork that can express that state that's so beyond the world of form, which I think is more of a feeling. But that's very exciting because it's almost something impossible to express. But it's like cool to try, you know. Maybe I'll spend the rest of my life trying, but it's fun. Fun journey.
Because I know from my own experiences that like when you're in it, there's this feeling of like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Like that is what this is, and it's just so impossible to actually like describe or communicate what the experience is like. That like visionary art is really one of the only like mediums that kind of sort of properly articulates like what that experience is like.
Absolutely. I think it really brings people together also when like we create as the artist our experience, but then we put it out there and people are like, whoa, I had that same experience. And them through seeing your artwork, they know you were there too. And
yeah.
It's like, you know, like I could have typed out like this long poem about like my experience, but really I feel like someone else seeing artwork and seeing the exact same thing they saw, it really brings the community together and it helps people realize that they're not alone in these mystical experiences.
Yeah, because it can feel really like bamboozling after the fact, because it's such there are times where it can be so intense that like, you know, we might not even know what we just experienced until we take the time to kind of like reflect on it and like, you know, express that and talk about it.
And some of these experiences are just so profound and beyond like anything. And it's like, you know, when you start getting into it's all love, it's all light, it's all one, and you're like, whoa, but like, is everybody else experiencing this, or am I going crazy? And then you see these artists making these artworks about like that same realm and talking about like it's all one, and then you're like, oh wait, like, you know, maybe we're all tapping into this deeper truth, and it's not just me, but it's like, you know, the human collective consciousness is something that's like arising. So it's like really cool, like the community that's brought together through visionary art. You can even see it in social media through the comments, like people being like, oh, I had that same experience, another person being like, me too, and like then they like, you know, they're all excited and they share it and they put it on their altar, and then like, you know, it's like they feel like they're not alone. And I think and it's also very reassuring to the artist, because the artist feels like they're not alone. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, because you find the others, you're like, there's more of us. Yay!
It's really cool.
I imagine you probably get people a lot who are like, I saw your art when I was on such and such.
All the time, but especially trippy, and I think you experienced this, you were here when it happened once, is when someone starts telling me, just like randomly starts saying like a spiritual experience they had, and I'm like, wait, I have an artwork of that. And then I show it to them, they're freaked out, because it's not like, you know, because then they really like see that it's not like they saw it first and they're like, oh yeah, that looks like what I had, but like for them to just say it and then me show, and they're like, whoa, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It happened here at a party once where there was a girl saying how she saw these beings made out of light holding hands.
Wow.
It was her birthday party, and she was just talking to like the whole crowd about that, like, yeah, and we're all like made out of light, we're holding hands in the circle, and I'm like, wait, and like pull out my portfolio, and it's like that same like piece, and she's like, oh my god,
yeah.
freaking out. And yeah, it was really cool.
So how would you advise someone who like they have a specific vision or an experience that they want to articulate into art, but they're like really confused as to like where to start? Like what advice would you give them to like start like properly articulating their vision like into art?
So there's quite a few tactics. In general, though, the more you try to do it, the more you try to bring a vision into the physical realm, each time you're going to get a little better, and it's going to get a little more accurate. So just like the amount of times you do it is huge. But really, like, I like to make sure people, like, you know, I personally like to do a sketch right after I get the vision, ideally, because it's very time sensitive. Kind of like a dream, how when a dream like passes, more if it fades, to immediately like sketch it out, even like a rough sketch. So sketching it out, maybe writing a little passage about what it was, and then starting to look at reference photos, because like some people, they try to do it all from their head, but really reference photos can be so useful. So like finding all the photos you need, the reference photos, sketching it out, and then now you have something like substantial. You have photos that you can reference, you have your sketch. Now you can work on kind of bringing them all together, making something more refined.
Yeah.
The more you do it, it's going to get more accurate. Sketching it out, finding reference photos, And yeah, that usually really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having reference photos is really useful.
Huge.
But when it's for like a mystical experience, it can be kind of hard to like find references for that, since a lot of them are like really unique.
Yeah, but you can still find usually at least some references. For example, if you saw like a really trippy like train made out of jewels, which is actually a piece I'm working on right now.
Cool.
You know, find photos of trains. You know, it's not. You know, I'm not gonna find a reference sort of like a train made out of jewels. You know, flying in the sky. But I can find photos of regular trains and use that. You know.
Yeah.
Maybe like skies and stars. You know, like things like that. You know, like break it down and find like a bunch of photos that might help. You know, is really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cutting in and out, and that's totally fine. So I want to talk more about like a little bit more about like the business aspect, and like hear your story on what like your career was like, because we've been friends for like a little over a year now.
Yeah,
and you've pretty much been like one of the digital artists that I look up to most, that I like, personally know. Like, you personally have inspired and motivated me like an immense amount, and I'm just really thankful for your presence and that, like, we're friends. So like, I have to ask, like, was there like a specific moment in your career where you like made it, or was it like a gradual ramp up towards like consistency in sales and like in commissions, and like was it really sudden, or was it like a ramp?
It was a ramp, and the thing is, like, it's hard to define success and like when you made it. So ironically, like, there's actually this book that I really like that helped me early on called Art, Money, Success, and in it asks like, define success, define like your definition of success, so you could like have something like solid to like reach for, like something specific. And ironically, I wrote down like make a certain amount and be able to do my art like full time, and like do whatever inspires me, and just be comfortable being able to do what I love all day. And I wrote that down, and the other day I was letting someone borrow that book, and I like flipped through it, and I saw, define success, and it said that, and it's like, I realized that I'm there already. Like, I'm doing that I was like, wow, I made that, but there's no point where, like, without me referencing that back, where I've been like, yeah, I'm successful now, But it's like funny, because I flipped through that book, and I'm like, whoa, like, I'm actually doing that now. I met that price. I'm, like, doing what I love all day. I'm doing it full time. Like, whoa. So it's like, it's maybe good. It was maybe a good idea to just write down something specific, If that's, like, earning a certain amount and doing a certain thing, like, having, like, success for me is this, and then just like seeing when you reach it, to have something just very specific. But really was a ramp up in general. I would say when I really started to realize it was starting to get serious was when I started like winning like best of shows and galleries, and when I started getting involved with Disney World, and I started seeing my family be like, oh yeah, like, you need to be an art, like, continue with this, we support this, was like huge for me, because especially at the beginning, my mom was always really supportive. My dad was kind of like, oh, I want you to make a living, like, like, I don't blame him. Like, he's super supportive now, but I don't blame him. Like, maybe he was a little, like, he cared about me. He wanted me to make sure I was financially well, and he's like, maybe you should study more, like, graphic design or something like that. But when I started getting to the point where I was, like, involved with Disney, and I was selling artworks, and I was winning best of shows, and I was doing gallery shows and things, and a bunch of people were going and buying my pieces, that, like, seeing, like, both of my parents' support was huge, and that's when I would start realizing it's not just me that's believing in this now, but I'm starting to see the people around me be like, oh yeah, like, she's an artist. And so that was huge for me.
Yeah, so you've worked for Disney, you've had gallery shows. How did you kind of like get the steam rolling like on those? Like, because I have a series that I want to get into a show later this year. That's like, the series is like very close to like complete enough. Mm-hmm. Like were you like going gallery to gallery just like showing your art, or did somebody like show up and was just like, here's an opportunity?
I kind of did it the wrong way, so but it worked. So
Let's hear it.
I was in art school, and the first like best of show I won was like I applied to my college like art contest, and I put in a piece, and I got there and it, like won best of show, and there was a bunch of people around it, and I was like, whoa. And it's like not only like the people in college that applied, but it was like the whole county. So I was like, whoa, like there was actually some professional artists in the show and stuff. And I was like so blown away that like this piece won best of show. And it was my homeless man piece. I don't know, maybe some people might be familiar with it. It's like this graphite drawing of this like homeless man.
It's on the screen right now.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, well, if this piece won best of show in my college, it's definitely worthy of being in a gallery. So I grabbed it, and I was living in like Cocoa Beach, Florida at the time. So I drove like an hour to Orlando and went to the nicest gallery, and I just brought the piece in, and this pretty like decent sized piece. It was pretty big and uncomfortable to carry out in the city. And I just went into the gallery, and I'm like, please, can I put this here? I was just like holding it up, and the people in the gallery were like, you gotta apply online or like email us. And I'm like, but look, and they're like, that is really good. You should definitely like hit us up. And I think it actually made an impact, the fact that I kind of just showed up, and I dressed really nice. Like I put like my nicest clothes on, and just like brought this artwork, and they're like, you can't just walk in here and have us put it on the wall. You have to like apply, you know. But it definitely made an impact, and they saw it in person. They were really blown away, and they're like, okay, like, and as soon as I applied, they accepted me. So it worked, and that's when I had my first official gallery show, and that piece was in it, and it was really fun. And I actually sold. I had another piece in there, and actually the other piece sold, which was really exciting. That in my first show it sold. So that's really the best way to go about it, I learned, was to actually like apply, and like most galleries have a system to get artists to apply, so applying to a lot of them, but it does make a huge difference to have your like face there, like in person. So like I wouldn't necessarily recommend people go in and bring their huge like canvases and artworks to a gallery. That probably wasn't the wisest thing. But bring bring a portfolio, and show it in the gallery, and just talk to the people first. And then now when you apply online, now there's like a face that they recognize and remember, and you're not the artist is no longer just like a name in online, like, oh, like a type name, but now they remember, oh yeah, I met this person, they seem nice, oh, I remember seeing the portfolio, here they're applying. It makes you a little more likely to get into galleries. And that's actually how I got involved with Disney World. Was I just brought my portfolio to a workshop that one of the Disney Imagineers, Timmy Britt, was teaching, and I just brought my portfolio, and it's like a nice like black portfolio with got like nice photo prints on it. And I just brought it after the workshop. I like showed it to him, like, hey, can you give me a portfolio review? Like, I didn't even ask, like, hey, I'm trying to get into this. I was just like, hey, can you just like look at my portfolio and tell me what you think? And he looked at it, and he's like, got really blown away, and he's like, text me, message me, like, I want to stay in contact with you. And then I became really good friends with him, and eventually he ended up training me and whatnot. So it's just like, you know, it's like if you're trying to still like get out there, like walking around with a portfolio can make such a huge difference, especially if you're going to go to any art related event or walk around in galleries. Just, you know, carry, or really there's actually like I've heard in this book, The Art Money Success, how there's like the artist would just like the husband of the lady that wrote it would literally just carry his portfolio with him everywhere, like everywhere he went. Like he'd go to the beach and he'd have it. So when people were like, oh, like, you're an artist, he'd be like, yeah, check it out, and then bam, business card. And you don't know how many sales and opportunities that can lead to, because yeah, we're reaching a lot of people online, but meeting people in person makes such a big difference. Like, it really makes a more deep impression. So going to important events, art galleries and things like that, and just bringing a portfolio, you don't know what kind of opportunities can come out of that. And that really made such a big difference for me. So
yeah,
I highly recommend doing that.
Yeah, it kind of loops into like where we started about like having confidence and just having the gusto to like walk in somewhere like with your art and be like, hi, this belongs here. And like what you were just saying got me so excited, because I literally have this portfolio that I've been like slowly but surely building over like the last year or so, that's just like completely filled with my art. And I've been
put some business cards in the back, just like stack a few in there so handy. Just bring that thing with you everywhere, and then people are like, oh, what do you do? Tell us about you. I'm an artist, check it out.
That's so exciting.
And I got in so many, like, I don't really carry it around anymore that much, unless I'm gonna go specifically to a big event or something, just because I don't feel so much pressure to, like, when I was like starting off, I like really brought it around with me everywhere, but to like, you don't know, like, it's led me to so many like art sales, like of originals and prints, and like just so many things. It's really cool.
Like you really never know like who's going to connect with your artwork, and like just having it with you and like just showing it to as many people as possible is definitely the way.
And it's so much better. It's such a better way to present your art than a phone. Because a phone seems kind of like, look, let me swipe through my photos. It's like, you know, it's a small screen, some people can't see it. It's like, it just like screams professional if you have it in a nice black book with like really nice quality prints. It really like screams professional.
And seeing the actual art in person too has such a more dramatic effect, because like we don't usually produce art for phones. Like we produce it for print. Like all of my artwork is made like specifically so that it looks as good as possible in print as it can. And like those like tiny little details that I spend hours putting in there, they don't really show up that well on phones. Like a lot of people don't notice them. And like looping back to like social media, like yes, we can reach like hundreds or even millions of people on social media, but like getting seen like amidst this massive ocean of static and other super talented artists is like it feels impossible to like actually rise up and like, you know, get noticed. So I want to ask, like, was there anything specific with like social media that you did to like help, because your Instagram following is like 18,000 or 19,000 followers right now?
It's 18.8K.
Wow. Did you tell me like a week ago it was like 18,200? So you gained like 600 followers in like 3 weeks? That's amazing. That's amazing.
I got a lot from High Times. High Times. That's true. Magazine, reposted my art on Instagram, and that really helped. As well as a few other big like Instagrams, and that always is such a boost. And what's really helped actually is just tagging big pages. That like, you know, there's always like they use all the hashtags and post at the right times, and like the right days, the best like days and best times and all that, and tag your location, like using all those. But you'd be surprised how much like you can get from, you don't want to get spammy, but like tag like a few big art pages. So you don't want to tag other artists or like random people. You want to tag pages that might repost your art, such as like, you know, like visionary art, like pages that like just post, like repost, that's what they do, they repost visionary art or like whatever kind of art, like make it specifically to you. Like what kind of like, this is a really big page, it has like 100K and it posts like my type of art, like I could see them reposting it. Tag them in your post, especially like if you release a big artwork or something you're really excited about, like tag them. That's how I got on High Times magazine, like Instagram, was I just tagged them in one of my posts and they see it, and then often they repost it, and when they repost it, that's when you get like a bunch of followers. So do you just tag them, or do you actually like send them a DM or like a couple comments like on there? Wow. Yeah, because I have to imagine that they get tagged like probably all the time. Like I've also heard that Instagram like changes after you like get above 10,000 followers. Yeah, you it like allows you to put links in your like story post, you can like now like do the swipe up and it takes you to a link. And it also, I think, gives you like the primary inbox and like a general inbox, so you can kind of like organize your messages more to like maybe like leads and like just general people. Kind of thing. It changes in a few things like that, but I would say those are the two main things.
Yeah,
but tip for people trying out the tagging big pages, just be mindful to not like tag like too many, because sometimes if you tag like it gives you a max of 20, and sometimes if you tag 20 accounts, it won't let you do the post because it'll think you're like spamming. So maybe doing like 10. And especially if a page, like you tag them and you notice they like untag you, you don't want to keep tagging them, you know, because then they might report you. Like if they like you tag like a certain page and then you look at their page later on and they removed your tag, you don't want to continue to tag them, because then you can annoy them and like they can report you, and you don't want to get your account banned, you know. But then there's pages where you tag them and they love it and they're like, oh, thanks, I needed to see this is like what I'm looking for. So you want to tag those kind of pages. And I've even become really good friends with a lot of these pages just from constantly tagging them, and they like it. And there's some pages that I like bought prints, like Message from the Beyond. I love that page. Great guy. He ended up buying prints, and he ended up asking me if I could like be in one of his books. So he like put my art in one of his books with like credit, which is like really cool. So things like that, cool things. So you just want to make sure that the people you're tagging are like they're either like cool with it or like even just ignoring you. You don't want them to be annoyed, you know? So
for
just
sure.
Be mindful of that.
So it sounds like having just like a regular regimen, I guess, or a habit of like, you know, tagging a couple pages. Because something that popped up for me as you were talking is like, you know, maybe tag like between 5 to 10 of the same pages, like in each post when you're like releasing a new artwork.
I change it up, you know? So I usually, I don't try to keep them like because then I think like if it's like every single post I'm tagging the same pages, it might get annoying. So I usually like mix it up, and especially if I notice that a post like a page like reposted my art, then I'll tag them more, because I'm like, okay, they liked it and they reposted it. And then maybe it'll be a bigger there's a bigger chance of them reposting it again. And sometimes like even pages that I haven't tagged that repost my art and they're a big page, I'll keep tagging them so that they can keep seeing what I'm doing.
Interesting. It seems like there's so many little like, you know, hacks and like tips and tricks that like people don't normally really think of, because what I've heard from marketing is in the past is that like you want to DM as many of these pages as possible, and just get in their comments and like get seen like in the comment listings. But then there's also that other aspect of like, you know, is your art actually going to like fit with the rest of the content on this page?
I think that's really important is to make sure you're tagging or commenting or whatever tactic you do to make sure it's like relevant, where you can see your own stuff on there.
For sure. Sometimes for, you know, artists who might be kind of like the lines between what genre they're in might be like kind of blurred. Like my art's like mystical and visionary, but I also include a lot of like fantasy elements to it. So some of it's like kind of like non-specific to anything that's really like easy for people, that's like tangible, that like people can grasp on. Like people see my artwork, like my mystical waterfalls, and like I don't feel like it really falls within a specific genre. I guess visionary art falls like it probably encompasses what I do the most, since a lot of it's based around visions. But I guess I'm, you know, curious like how someone would, you know, figure out what page or what kind of like influencer page that they should be like reaching out to and like networking with. Like how do you find these pages?
Sometimes just like if you have a vague idea of what it might be, like visionary art, like looking up visionary art and like seeing like what pages come up, or even just like looking up the hashtag visionary art, and you can see like what the most popular posts are, you know, when you look it up. And often they'll be artists, but often they'll be also like big pages, and you want to tag just the repost pages.
Yeah.
I mean, usually you can get an idea. Like if you're doing abstracts, you want to tag like abstract pages. Just never tag other artists, because then what are they gonna do with that? You know? Post yourself.
I actually tagged Alex Gray, and like when I first started on Instagram, because I thought that's what you were like supposed to do, I would tag Alex Gray and use like hashtag Alex Gray in like all of my art posts, because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. It never worked. He never reached out and was like, "Hey, Brad, I really like your art." He's never said that to me. Maybe he will one day. You met Alex Gray, right? Like you learned from him at Cosm.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that experience? I'm so curious.
Oh man, it was so surreal. So Alex Gray totally inspired so much of my career. Like he still is like. Before I met him, he'd been my favorite artist for over a decade, and he still is. So, like, when I met him, I was so nervous, of course, like, meeting my hero. And I see him, and I go up to him, and I'm, like, kind of, like in shock. And I'm like, Alex, you've been my favorite artist for, like, a decade, and you inspired my whole career. And he just looks at me with, like, the sweetest, like, face, and just grabs me and gives me the biggest hug, and that was like the best possible reaction I could have gotten him. He wasn't like, "Oh, thank you," or like, "Yeah, I know I'm great." He just hugged me so hard, and I could tell that it meant so much to him, which is huge, because I know he's such a big artist. He probably gets it all the time, but to have him be so humble and like realize that, like, you know, it really means so much to each individual person. It was like, it really made me like him even more.
Yeah.
You know, and just the whole time it was just so chill and just so down to earth and just so cool. Like, it was like such an awesome experience, so inspiring to meet him, and he was like, I don't know, just so in tune. His energy is just like wonderful. Like it's amazing when artists can become that big but still remain so humble and down to earth. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. Was there anything that you like picked up from that class that was like the one key thing, or like the two or three key things that really helped you?
Honestly, one of the biggest things I picked up was like showing him and Alice in my portfolio and having them look through my art, and Alex really like looked at me and was like, "What are you trying to do with this?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to raise the human collective consciousness." And he just looked like super deep into my eyes. He's like, "You can do that." And I'm like, I almost cried. I'm like, whoa! Like it was just so meaningful. Like that he like looked at me. And he was like I could see he like believed I could. And like to hear that from my hero, like that was like beyond anything I could have learned. It just gave me so much hope and so much, like, I already had confidence, you know, I was already like a full-time artist, but it just took it to a whole new level to like see my hero like be like, yeah, you can do that. It was really cool. And
I bet.
And I loved how just he was so like ethereal and like mystical and like the visions and the realms. And then Allison Gray was like just so like business oriented, and like she gave me so many good business tips and like, okay, this is how we're gonna make it happen. Because like when I told her, you know, like Alex was like, when I told him I wanted to raise a collective consciousness, he's like, you can do that. He just gave me so much inspiration. I was like, oh. And then I showed it to Alice, and she's like, what are you trying to do with this? I'm like, I'm trying to raise a human collective consciousness. She's like, how are you gonna do it? What's the game plan? So it's like two like super good perspectives, because you totally need both those perspectives. You need the hope, you need the magic, and you need like the game plan, the business. How are you gonna do it? So like there's some artists that are lucky to have like another person that can be their business minded person, but for most artists you have to be both, and you have to have both of those sides within you, and the magic and the internal, so like the applying. So that was huge. And I learned like how much they really enjoyed doing like drumming, like listening to drumming and like laying down and like closing your eyes and using that to get visions. It was really cool. Ooh. It was super cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I drum in here sometimes when I'm like completely fried from staring at a screen for absurd hours.
They played like shamanic drums, and like we'd all just like close our eyes, and usually Alex and Allison, they kind of lead us through like the guided meditation. And after a while, I was surprised it did start to get like really intense visions. Like, you know, I'm pretty visual though. I get visions easily, but I was shocked by how intense they got, and I was like,
yeah.
So like, it was cool. And then like they were like all about like immediately go and make it, like immediately go and start, you know, because like you have to like hold that image in your mind. You can't just like go and wander off and do a bunch of other things because it's gonna fade. So that was huge. One thing that also really helped me, this was a tip from Allison, business tip that has helped me quite a lot. Ooh. Is I have my portfolio was to make like postcard size prints like this.
Yeah.
She told me, like, she told the class, like, you guys should really make some prints like this, and she even gave out some with your information in the back. So it has like your like Instagram, your website, all that. You know.
Cool.
And the reason this is like so great is that this is so much better than a business card, because like you give someone like a little business card as an artist, and it's kind of like, it's a little lame, you know, like even if it has an artwork, it's so little, and most people just like throw away business cards afterwards, you know. They'll like get your contact and then they'll throw it away. But something like this, it's like a mini print, and it's like nice, and they want to keep it, and they'll put it up somewhere, and maybe someday, like or like 3 years down the road, they'll look at it and they're like, oh yeah, that artwork's cool, I need artwork now, and they'll look at the back and they can contact you and you can buy art. So it's like sir, it works so much better than a business card. People aren't going to get rid of these as likely. Maybe they will, but way less likely to get rid of this. And it's also like really nice, like after they look at your portfolio, for you to give them one of these, because it's like it's such a nice gift, and it kind of ignites the feeling of reciprocity. Yeah, like it feels like you're giving them like an actual print, even though these end up, if you get them in bulk, they end up being pretty affordable. So it's not like, you know, costing you that much, but you give someone this and they're like, whoa, like you gave me an actual print, like that's so nice of you, and they're so much more likely to like, whoa, this artist is so nice, they just gave me a print for free, to like go and actually buy like a nicer print from you, or an original, or like get something. So it serves that, like people already, like it's such a nice gesture, they want to like be nice to you back, they won't get rid of it as easily, and plus it's just like a nice way to get your art out there. Like it's cool to know, like I've given these out in festivals and things, and like I get photos of people putting them in their altar, friends putting them in like their workspace, and it's just cool. Like at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is trying to get our art out there and like, you know, get the visions out. So it's really nice that people put them to use. So it's cool. And I even just leave these around town, around wherever I go. I like put them in little places, like, you know, and they usually like, I used to put them in like places where I showed my art, and they'd always tell me, oh, they all got taken. People really like them. So people like these, and it's just like poster size, and I usually get like the front glossy and the back like matte. And just make sure you have your contact info. It's really great. So that was a wonderful business tip from Allison that's helped me out so much. Really sold a lot of artworks from that. And
I feel like that's an idea I've actually had before, but like hearing you say that, I'm like 100% going to act on that, because it is like little things like that, like after the interaction that you've had with someone, like it leaves them with something tangible, like from that interaction, and like assuming that they like your art and you make a good connection, like they actually have something that like can that comes from that, and having that physical thing that is like a thing of value that you can like put on your wall is you know, it's like a constant reminder of like that little interaction. Like I think that about like stuff, like physical things, all the time. Like it actually took me a really long time to get into stickers, because like the idea of just like putting like tattooing objects basically with stickers, like it just felt like weird to me. It was like, because it is kind of like a tattoo for stuff, you know. And like speaking of stickers, to your left there's a big fat bag of stickers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you should show that to the camera, or show one of them there. And like, I'm going to leave those around town in various places. Actually, one of my promotional plans for this podcast, you know, until we get Alex Gray on here, was to make Visionary Art Podcast stickers and just place them around Asheville, because I know that we have a lot of people around here in town that you know, would really resonate with like what my intention for this show is.
Nice.
And yeah, that's
awesome.
That's such a useful tip. Like, I'm definitely gonna be utilizing that.
Everybody utilizes it. I'm so glad for Allison Gray for giving us that tip. It's useful. It's really like one of the best tips I got from the workshop. Ironically, it seemed like such a like little tip. Oh yeah, you guys should make like little poster size, like, you know. It seemed like when she said it, maybe a lot of people didn't even use it because it didn't even seem like that important. But then when I applied it, I realized like how good of a tip it was. Yeah,
seeing it in action and like seeing the results. Yeah, that's so cool. How many people were
like so excited to get one? They felt like I was so nice. They wanted to like buy something afterwards. You know, they put it places, but really the biggest thing is to make sure like you include your information in the back, and to make sure like you put your best artwork on it. You know, I got 2 of my favorite artworks on there. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. There's like good websites where you can get them, and they end up being like really cheap, like less than $1, like less than 50 cents, I think, per little print.
Yeah, that's so good, because I know it's like the print shop I go to, they charge by like square foot, but like I imagine getting them in bulk like that is like probably the way to go. I'll probably ask you after the show like where you got those made. And I'm also like super inspired to like bring that giant Crabtree Falls campus behind you like into a gallery or somewhere, and just be like, I'm just gonna hang this up on that wall right over there.
You know, maybe they'll probably be like, oh, you know, that's not how you're supposed to do it, which is what they did with me, but it'll definitely make an impression.
Yeah. I feel like making it as an artist is like, you know, it means you have to like you do have to like give yourself permission to like do those things, and like really just like make a decision that you're going to do something, and then like commit to it and like follow through with it. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is just like the second guessing of it, and like feeling like over analyzing our own ambitions and ideals, and like something that we've had a lot of steam on, like, yeah, I'm gonna bring this portfolio around, I'm gonna get my art in some shops, like it's gonna be like I know that my art's good, like this is gonna work, but then like, you know, I second guess it, and I'm like, well, maybe I should finish this one piece first, or like maybe I should like get different size prints, or like maybe I should do that,
There's always going to be stuff to do with art, and there's always going to be room for improvement, because art is not something you like reach a certain point and then it's done. Like, there's always room to grow in art, so it's better to just start right away, even if you feel like someone feels like they're still like they're not quite there yet, you know. I know a lot of artists that are starting out tell me that a lot of my students are like, oh, but I don't feel ready to be like a professional artist. Like, it's really important to just start putting your art out there, taking your portfolio, doing that, because even sometimes for me, and I know other professional artists that are like pretty big, they're still like look at their stuff and they're like, oh, you know, that could be better, and there's always gonna be that feeling. So like, you just kind of like, you just gotta have to kind of work past it and just start like, you know, promoting yourself regardless of whatever point you're at, because over the time that would just build more momentum. So you're just trying to build like your business momentum as your art techniques grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one more question, and then I think we're gonna wrap this one up.
Cool.
What advice would you give to a literal starving artist? Like, they're all talent, no sales, and they like don't know if they're going to be able to eat this week. Like, what's the actionable advice that you would give to them to like, you know, get out of this like super stressful circumstance and like go like get some results.
If you're literally about to starve, go and get another job for now while your heart improves. I'm sorry, but like if you're putting that much pressure on like your creative side, and you're literally starving, then it's not going to be fun anymore, and you're not going to be in the best like situation to create. So having like, even if it's a part-time job, just so it's bringing in a little money and then you can create and not have to worry so hard on finances, will help relieve some of that pressure. And when you're kind of doing art more for like enjoyment and like with more inspiration, it's gonna be better. And so that's like just if they're literally starving like literally can't like go on anymore, like get a side job while you still make art every day, you know?
Yeah.
But besides that, just like read a ton of art business books, because really often it's not even the art quality or how good it is, because there's, like I said, there's literally like bananas being duct taped onto the finest like art galleries in the world, selling for like thousands, you know. So it's not like how your art is, you know. There's rags, you know, all sorts of really weird stuff, and it's selling for thousands of dollars. So often it's not the quality, it's usually the problem is the business side. Always it's good to improve your skills, but usually it's the business side. So like grabbing a bunch of the best art business books, highly recommend Art Money Success. Making it in the art world is really good too. Like just dive super deep into art business and getting really good at it. So like reading all these books, like read a ton of them, watch as many art business, like super, like dive super hard into teaching yourself like how to do business is usually the best thing, because that will just like teach you how like the starving artist how to make a living. So yeah, usually that is probably my best advice. And honestly, I'm gonna say because I saw it myself. I was working before I was a full-time artist. I was working as like a banquet server, and my art skills, like there's pieces that sold now for like thousands that I had already made. Like my art skills were there. Like I was winning best of shows. Like my art skills were definitely there. I was like doing it really, really well, but I did not have my art business down. And it wasn't until I started like reading all these art business books and watching a bunch of art business videos, and literally like I kind of paused doing my art and just dove super hard, like multiple hours a day, into just learning art business, that I transitioned into a full-time artist. It wasn't that my art technique suddenly got better. It was like I was literally had the same art technique. It was literally just like I dove really hard into art business and I figured it out, you know. So,
yeah, what this really makes me think of is like showing off your portfolio when you don't really feel like it's ready yet. Like if you bring your portfolio around and just like show it to people and be like, hey, like do you wanna look at my art and just tell me what you think? Even if you feel like you're still practicing or you're still learning, then like that pitching of yourself, that like your like self promotion and advertising by going up to people and just asking them like, hey, what do you think?
And you're never done learning.
Yeah, that is
you're never gonna be done learning. So just start now. Just start promoting now. Start reading. Like literally, there's so much good stuff in books. Like books are so huge. Like reading, like go on Amazon and definitely get Art Money Success and Making it in the Art World. Those are two huge ones. I'd Rather Be in the Studio is also really good. But like look up art business books and buy a few on Amazon. Watch quite a few YouTube videos. All that really helps, and just start. But not only reading them, here's the thing, not only reading them, but applying what they say. Yeah. Is what's up.
That's like making an action plan.
Yeah, action plan. Like read what's in the book, do it. Actually do it, and that will make a huge difference. So usually if someone's starving, they're really starving and they have no savings, side gig for now. On the art business learning and start applying. Literally, like it might even be like completely pausing the actual art making and just like with what you have, just like start getting some money momentum going, and that usually will get like artists to become full-time artists. Yeah,
that's actually one of my biggest regrets in my full-time art career is like leaving my like comfortable 9-to-5 job like before I was really actually ready. Like I'm going to be honest and just say that I was like disillusioned by self-help material. There's a couple entrepreneurs I followed and I was like, I can do what they're doing from home. I can work from my couch. It's totally possible. Like, not realizing how like rigorous I actually had to be like with my scheduling in order to do what I needed to do. And this is a mistake that I'm talking about because I don't want other people to go through this, was I got stuck in this loop of imposter syndrome where I felt like I wasn't deserving of like these projects or sales that I was like totally capable of doing. I felt like I wasn't deserving of them because I had made this mistake. And like that was something that was like it still is like excruciatingly hard at times, like to get out of that loop and like, you know, get that actual validation of like receiving money like for your artwork. And like I think it's definitely worth it to wait until like your art career is actually sustaining as much or more than like your current part-time job to actually make it like profitable. Because something else I noticed is that like when I was at work at my boring corporate 9-to-5 job where like it wasn't ideal. It was a good environment, but it wasn't like ideal for what I wanted to do. A lot of my best ideas happened while I was like sitting in that desk outside of my art studio doing something that I didn't really want to do. That was when all of those ideas were just like avalanches of them every single day. Like I got so many good notes like from that period of time listening to podcasts and just like Buzz walking by the mic. What a good boy. And I got so much insight from just being there, like looking at listening to what other people were doing. And like while I was working on something else linear, that was when my ideas were hot. They were coming in and not stopping.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. And I also want to make the point for artists that ideally you don't want to be working your like side job so much that you don't have any energy to create. So you want to still like make sure you have time in the day to work on your business and work on art, because if that's what you're trying to make your full time, you have to put a certain amount of hours into it. So usually I would recommend probably the best way is to like lean off of your like job slowly, like get less and less hours. Maybe like if you're working full time, maybe get a part-time job and then use that rest of the time to make art. Then once that kind of gets going more, your art gets going more, you start like making some money, then maybe ask for a few less hours and use those hours not to watch TV or be lazy, but to like actually like work on art. Because you have to realize that being a full-time artist requires like usually 8 hours of work on art, you know? So if someone wants to be a full-time artist, they can't just make art when they feel inspired, like a few times a week or 1 hour or two a day. Like you have to start like transitioning off your part-time job less and less and getting that chunk of time of like doing art and art business to like 8 hours. And like slowly lean off the part-time job until you're only working occasionally on it, and then eventually you're like, okay, well I'm good, you know, I'm like doing full-time art now because you actually have like where it's like actually providing a living. So that's probably the best way to go about it, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because there's nothing like trying to market your art when you're like completely burnt out and stressed. Like it's just impossible. Like it doesn't work.
Yeah, if you're working like crazy hours in your like other job and you get home and you're like super tired, your chances of becoming a full-time artist are really low there, because like you're probably not going to have that much time to do art business and art.
Yeah.
And I think I really want to emphasize people like that want to be full-time artists that you basically have to do like, I would say about 50-50. 50% of the time like work on marketing, your website, social media, hitting up people that had like leads, like all that is like 50% of the 4 hours of your day. And then the other 4 hours might be like art making, you know? And some days it might fluctuate, but like generally like I think a lot of people think, oh, full-time artists, they're making art like all day, 8 hours, and oh man, I wish that was the case. Maybe later on, if you have someone that's gonna do your business, oh, congratulations, that's awesome. Or if you have a representative, amazing. But for most artists that are doing it all themselves, it's gonna end up being like half business, half art making.
And probably like, especially in the beginning, around like 13 to 15 hours a day. Like I'm in the spot for like at least 13 hours a day, like 6.5 days per week.
It's because like when you're starting off, you have to work like twice or 3 times as hard to build up like something else, a foundation. But ideally, like what eventually usually happens, if you work really hard when you're starting out, later on you can kind of relax because you're ready now. You have a reputation, you have a name, you have like your everything kind of set up. So do know that usually, like as you go on, things get easier. Yeah. But you do have to. But that's really what will distinguish like the artists that aren't gonna make it from the artists that are gonna make it. Is the artists that are gonna make it don't give up and they work super duper hard and they earn it, and then now they're like established.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
That's such a relief to my very first question that it does actually get easier. It sounds like, just to kind of like wrap up everything we've talked about, it sounds like kind of like you have to, when you are on that like high place of like, yeah, I'm feeling really good about my art, like I'm feeling really good, like people are really vibing with it and liking it, haven't made any sales yet, that's okay, we're gonna go out and we're gonna make more people see it. We're gonna give like little postcards and stickers to people, and we're going to, we're gonna keep pushing and like embody this confidence that I feel right now, because I think when we feel in the moment, when we feel that confidence, that's where we're going to get the best results, and that's where we're going to get the best reactions and interactions from other people. And if we get ourselves into, I don't think we discussed like systems or scheduling. That can be a whole podcast in and of itself. Oh yeah. Once you get into like a really solid system that's like really working for you, then like eventually you don't have to work 6.5 days a week from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, because you have this like consistency in a system that's like proven and it's working, and like there's enough people within your network and your audience that like it starts to build on itself and snowball. And it sounds like it's just like taking it like one day at a time, taking it like one task at a time per day. You finish 3 tasks, eventually that adds up, and you build yourself an art career that will feed you for the rest of your life.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
All
right, Juliana, tell our wonderful viewers where they can find you.
So you can find me on Instagram. It's probably where I'm most active. Juliana Garces Art. That's JulianaGarces and art, ART. And you can also find me on JulianaGarcesArt.com is my website. If you look up on Facebook, Juliana Garces Art, you'll find me. But probably my best way to reach me is through my Instagram and my website. So yeah.
That's fantastic. And all of those links will be down below in the description.
Yep. Also, I teach art classes. If you want to learn technique or if you want to learn art business, just contact me, and I'll help you out. It'll be my pleasure.
I am telling you, she will show you the ropes. I just from being friends with her, I have learned such an enormous amount. So if you're interested in learning more about visionary art and also the business side of things, Juliana is actually the one that I go to when I need business advice or when I'm in the midst of an existential drama, and she always has like the greatest advice. So you will not be disappointed if you reach out to her to learn. So Juliana, I love you. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Many blessings.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.